Hi, this is Cheryl of Majestic Wire Artworks. Tonight we're going to work on making these coil earrings, or a pendant if you chose to make the loop on top into a bail. I won't be showing you how to make a bail on this tutorial, but I can share a link on what videos do show you how to make a bail. So I want to also show you what other options you can do with this type of technique. You can make a heart, and because a heart has a dip, it always has another bead on top. This is a big heart. It's a 14mm heart, and it's 3/4 of an inch wide in total. And this is an 8mm bead here that we've just done a simple wrap around it. But there's other options, and I'm going to show you them. This is a 10mm bead, and I put a bicone on it. And when you add extra bead on top, it's going to give you some more interest, because it's going to give you airspace when you add the circle around it. And see, it's like, that one's a little bit too big. Got a better one. This one. That one should fit. Okay, so you see how once that's on there, it's got the airspace there, and that just makes it a little bit more elegant. And you could also do a smaller heart with a bicone, and because a bicone is taller than the rondelle. Goodness. There we go. Okay, so this is, I think it's about a 10mm or 8mm heart. Let's just check that out. It's a 10mm. Okay, and then so clumsy me. I'm trying to be not clumsy, but it doesn't always work. Okay, so it's going to have, I'm going to put a bigger circle around that one. Okay, there we go. So it's got quite an interesting look to it when you do that, because it's got, from the different shape, it's got a lot of airspace. That's pretty. Okay, and then you can also do options like this type of teardrop bead. See how it's got the hole drilled from top to bottom, and then it doesn't give as much airspace with this shape as the heart did. But that's kind of interesting too. And then it's going to move from side to side, just like the large heart. When you wear it, it's going to go from side to side. Okay, and you can either leave it plain and wear it like this, or you can lengthen it with another element on top. I'm not going to show you how to make this element. We're just going to do a simple 3-bead link. I make this element in another video, and I'll give you the link to that one as well if you like this look. You could also add my S-wrap look. I haven't done this video yet, but once I do, I will put the link in at a later date. So keep checking back. Always check back, because I add little things later on. And one more element that I think would look really cool, or style bead. I haven't made one of these yet, but I just thought of it today. But a large teardrop by itself doesn't need a bead on top at all, because the way the top of this works, it would disguise it. That one's too big. There we go. Now, wouldn't that look pretty? Yeah, I'm going to have to make one of those. Okay, so today, though, I am making just the simple wrap like I did with this one. But this is with a polymer clay bead. So it's going to have some variation in shape because it's handmade, so it's not 100% round. So that will probably give us a little bit of a challenge, but hopefully not too much. So in order to make that the size to match the bead, because every bead is different, I want you to take a piece of 20 gauge wire. Okay. I'm going to straighten this out a bit. Now this is just a scrap piece of wire. This will not be used to make the earring itself. It's going to be kind of like, I don't know, it's going to measure. It's our measuring tool. Okay, so I'm guessing about size 4. And I'll probably be wrong. This is a trial and error process. Oh, it's a little bit, not too much, but a tiny bit. You know what? Maybe that is the right size. Okay, so I lucked out. And just because I only want the length of what we need to coil, I'm going to snip this like that and get rid of the excess so that we only have that length. I'm going to try it again on the bead. And yes, that's good. It's got a little bit of looseness, but that's mainly because the bead isn't round. So that's going to work for us. So now what I want you to do is stretch out that wire once you get your size, and just go ahead and flatten it. And I'm going to pause for a second while I flatten it. Okay, so now I want you to take one of your 7-inch pieces of 20 gauge wire and measure 2.5 inches from the end. Okay, and give it a bend. Okay, and I want you to make your earring loop with the 2.5 inches. So that should make your loop quite nicely. Not tight on the bottom, so let's fix that up. Okay, and give it about 3 wraps. Now these wraps are going to be really covered, so they don't necessarily have to be neat. But what we do need to do is, this is the front, and we're going to trim it off at the front so that the edge won't be in the back and we won't have to worry about covering it up. It's going to be covered up by the design elements, but we do need to crimp it in so it doesn't stick out. That should do it. Okay, so you're probably wondering what we were doing with that other piece of wire that we made the circle around. And what this is our measurement of how much coiling we need to do. And that will make our circle. And if I remember correctly, it was about size 4.5. So we should really write it down. When we figure out what this length was around the ring mandrel, we need to write it down what it was. And I'm pretty sure it was 4.5. And I should have written it down. Okay, so the next step is to take your 26 gauge of weaving wire, and at the end we give it a tail and we start wrapping it, doing our coil. It's awkward at first. Okay, so don't worry about how messy it is at first. Let's just get it going. That's the main thing. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay. Okay, so now I'm getting it nice and neat. It's not too messy at the front, but if it was, I would just unravel the messy part, because we usually get messy at first and then it gets neater. Okay, so I just saw one little space in there. That's being silly, but there we go. Okay, now I'm going to continue coiling. And this is 26 gauge instead of what I normally do of 28 gauge, so it's a little bit fussier. So you do about 5 wraps fairly close together and then push it together. Okay. And what you want to do is take and wrap as long as your length of wire is. Okay, I'm gonna let you do your own, and I'm gonna be back once mine's done. I'm back, and I believe I have the right length of coil done, but because the coil takes up a little bit of room, I always give a little bit for good measure. Let's say 3 more wraps. Then when we do the next earring, you use this as your measurement because we want them to be exactly the same. Okay? So go ahead and do exactly the same thing. We'll make your measure your 2.5 inches to make your loop for the top of your earring. 3 wraps, and then match the coil length of this earring. Okay, and I will see you back in a bit. Okay, so I have both of these coil wires about the same length. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is you kind of want the wire to be fairly straight. So we're going to slide it all the way to the end to do this. And what I mean by wire to be straight, see how it's all wavy? So I want to very gently straighten the wire. Okay, I'm going to get you to do that, and I'll have mine done shortly. Be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I have them fairly straight. Now the next thing I get you to do is slide them up again the other way. Just a little bit, just enough to snip off the end of that wire and crimp it in. Get as close as you can. And when you crimp it in, go the direction that the coil, there. the coil is going. And maybe I should have trimmed before, because you can actually bend it a little bit, but that was pretty good. And now I'll do the other one. I'm going to do it right there. There. Okay. So then the next step, we don't want to take this off yet because it might end up poking us. So we're gonna just trim it off to be about 1/2 inch in length. Do it to both. Okay. So the way we know what the front is we've got the snipped wrap wire here. So that's going to be your telltale sign that that's the front. And we're going to take these wires with your chain nose pliers or flat nose pliers. And this one I'm going to bend to the left. And the other one, got to make sure I have the front. Yep, so that's the front. See, that's not quite crimped in enough. There we go. And I'm going to grab this and we're going to bend it to the right. Up till now, they've been exactly the same in every way, shape, and form. Even the top loop, we just did the regular loop. Okay? So then the next step is to take our coil and our ring mandrel, and now we're going to make our loop, and we said 4.5 inches. I see a bend in there. I don't want that there, so I'm going to gently straighten it. Okay. It's going to move around on us, but we have to try and do our best. We want that loop up, and it bent on us, but we can fix it. Okay, and we always want to go in front of the front with that. So right there. See how it matches up? And it was at 4.5. But yours will be a different size. Make sure you write down what size it was. But you'll know when the coil meets up like that, that's pretty good. And it's going to stretch apart, but that's okay. And now I'm going to fix that loop, and I'm also going to crimp this off now because we should be safe. I mean, cut this off. Okay, and crimp it down. I'm a little bit more nervous today. You'll have to forgive me for my stage fright. Okay, and now I'm going to bend this up. Out like that. And now I'm going to put it back on the ring mandrel and straighten out the loop. Okay, it should be good. Let's check that out. Good. Okay, and now I'm going to do the other one the same way. So again, I'm checking what's the front. That's the front. That one turned out a little bit better, actually. going to have to bend this up. Probably should use pliers for that. Back on the loop, on the mandrel. Okay, that looks pretty good. Snip that off. And crimp it in. Okay. We can crimp that in later when you can get it more secure. Okay, so you see the two loops, how they're different at the front. One has this one coming to the right and the other one to the left. That's what you want. Okay, so the next step, and I'm going to put it back on the ring mandrel to do this, because that way we keep our hoop straight. Okay. I'm trying to do this so you can see. Okay. I'm going to take it off, just for ease of being able to move my fingers. And I'm going to wrap it around to the top. It doesn't have to be neat. I mean, that's fairly neat, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, we're going to end about there. And we're just going to leave that wire like that as is. Okay, and now we're going to do the same to the other earring. And I'm going to try something different this time. I'm just going to try doing it off the mandrel by holding this firmly. And coming back to the front. Okay, like that. Is that straight? Okay, and then I'm going to put it on the mandrel and stretch it to be nice and round. For some reason that's, now it's 5. It really stretched. I'm going to check it with my bead. It's a little bit big. What did my other one do? Okay, so that's the difference of wrapping it while it's on the mandrel or not. Lesson learned. So I'm going to take this one apart. I'm not sure why I did that. I thought they were identical. That doesn't make sense, does it? Okay, that's 5. Oh, so that, no, they're the same. It's just one bead smaller than the other. There we go. There's the problem. Oh, I can't change that. But this is what we'll do. Is now we're at that point, stage. Now you need your other bead wires, as I'm going to call them. It's basically the leftover of your weaving wire. And we're going to move everything out of the way. You're going to fold it in half. And we're going to take the end of our round nose pliers and make it a fairly small fold. Okay. I should have mentioned before, any beads that you use for these earrings, you need to be able to fit two 26 gauge wires in them. So that might affect what kind of crystals you choose. See, there's no problem with this. It's got a huge hole. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put seeing through the camera can make this difficult. Okay, like this. And we want to get it as straight as possible here. And I'm going to take my pliers. Well, you want to pull, but you don't want to distort the circle either. So I'm going to take my pliers so that I don't distort it, and then I'm going to push it down a little bit so that it kind of blends in with the other wires. Okay, you see how it did that? It actually spread them apart a little bit, and that's okay. And now I'm going to put the bead back on those wires. And flip it around. Okay, like that. And I'm going to take these two wires. And you can take, especially if you've got something that really needs to be centered like a heart, you take one wire on one side and wrap it around. Okay, you gotta be careful of this wire. Don't want to wrap around it. Okay, and now this wire is going to go this way, and that way it'll automatically center your bead. Okay, and we want to finish it off. See, this is facing forward, that is the front. So we want them both finishing off at the front, and snip them off there and crimp them in there. Okay, so I'm crimping them in now, just so that the ends are tucked in. Okay, now with this wire we're going to make a spiral, and we want to make a fairly large spiral with this bead because it's a large bead, so we want approximately an inch to make the spiral. If you've got a smaller bead, you will want to shorten it to 3/4 or 1/2 inch. You can practice your spirals with scraps ahead of time to see what length makes a certain size of spiral, and then you can stick it over top to say, yes, that's what I want. Okay, so I believe I want an inch spiral with these large earrings. So I'm going to measure an inch. And an inch is approximately 2.5 centimeters for those doing metric. Okay, and you see how this one is on the left-hand side. So I'm going to do a spiral that goes this way, because it'll sit nicer. And then the other one, it'll be on the right-hand side. And I'm going to do, so this one's going to be a clockwise. The one that's on the left-hand side is going to be a clockwise spiral. And the one that's on the right-hand side is going to be a counterclockwise spiral. Okay. So clockwise. So right here. I'm starting counterclockwise, I think. I think the main thing is that you're doing opposites so that they're mirrored. Okay, so I'm flipping this, so whichever just way it ends up being, you can flip it to be the way you want it. See how easy that was? Okay. And then you almost need to just straighten it to be centered. There we go. Flatten that coil. And there it is. Whoops. Okay. So I'm going to pause this and get the other one quickly done. And you go ahead and finish up yours. And I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I've got the two earrings done. See how it just automatically made the coils there, or spirals, I mean, the opposites. So that's why we started with this one in the front and over here in the front. We just made them opposites. Okay, so now I'm just going to do a basic 3 bead drop. So I should call it an element, I guess. And I'm just going to start with taking a working piece of 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to make a P loop at first at the end. Okay, see, like that. And now I'm going to flip it back because we want it to be an I loop, and like that. And then we put the 3 beads on the other end. So I'm taking a 4mm bicone. I mean, you could use whatever beads you like, but this is what I'm using for today. And a 6mm rondelle, so that's 6 by 4. And another 4mm bicone. And I'm sliding it down. And now we're going to do another loop like that, going the opposite way. So I'm just going to bend it as flat as I can. Okay, there. And then I'm going to make a loop like that. And this is a little bit awkward. So you just flip it around as best you can, like this. Okay, see how it's looped like that? And now I'm going to snip it right in there. Make sure the flush cutter's the right direction. And this can be quite difficult to do. So I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. Couldn't get my snips in there. I pushed it in too far. So I'm going to bend it up like this just so I can reach at it. And then push it down again. And there it is. Okay, so that's going to take practice to do that if that's going to be your first time. And I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. And the loops are completely opposite. Perpendicular, basically. Okay. So the one that's not as round, we're going to put on the earring, the eardrop I mean. And the one that's nice and round, we went up on the ear wire because that's what faces forwards. Just going to put that on there. Close it up. And there's with the ear wire, and that's what it looks like. They're pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to get the second one done. Be right back. And there's the second one done. And there they are. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope you join me for the next one too. I'll see you soon. Bye.